Hey, have you heard of this new band that I just discovered? Really awesome black metal, dark imagery, and it sounds like it was recorded on a Motorola Razr and not a pink one. Yeah, but let me just look up if there's anything fishy about them. So, sick new band controversy. Okay. Yeah, no, don't forget about it. I never mentioned them. Hello, it's me, Itzanowski. And in my last video, I talked about separating the art from the artist and how this is not really possible for me. And while I mainly spoke about accusations like sexual assaults, etc., there is, of course, also the problem of racism and straight up Nazi dog whistling, or rather, violent dog screaming in metal. Now, in the intro, I used the example of black metal, and there are a lot of problematic black metal bands. There is even a subgenre called NSBM, that means Nationalist Socialist Black Metal, and the name is based on Hitler's Nazi party, the Nationalist Socialist Party, which has nothing to do with socialism, mind you. But I don't only want to talk about black metal, because there is this bigger notion and this more general notion of keep politics out of metal, which is, in my experience, brought up when someone points out the racist past or present of a band or an artist. And, keeping politics out of metal is seen by some people as a tool to keep the peace and, focus on the music, creating a community that is united in their love for metal and does not spend their time fighting each other. But, on the other hand, some also see this as a free pass for people to be racist or misogynistic and, straight up assholes, as long as they like the same sick-ass riffs as the others. So today I want to talk about the pros and the cons of this dogma and also give you my personal opinion, because this is my channel. Welcome, subscribe. So let's start with the positives. On the positive side, I feel like trying to find things that unite us as a community and as people in general is important. In our modern society, especially, so many struggle with loneliness, and it's hard to find people as more and more life, happens online, and third places to just, hang out and meet people are declining. It's becoming increasingly difficult to find your people. So having a whole community of metalheads just accepting you, once you wear the right band shirt and can name 3 songs, of course, is awesome. And, talking politics can be divisive for people, which is why this usually isn't a recommended topic for work meetings and, other environments in which you need to get along with others. So saying that this topic isn't to be discussed in the community can help with keeping the peace and, focus on the uniting factor, which is the music. Unless you're a poser, of course, because then you go straight to poser jail. Keeping politics out of your music also makes it much more agreeable. If you don't sing about how you love communism or Nazis, then the respective enemies will not have anything to cry about. So if there is no political message in a song, then it's also not taking away any attention away from the music itself. Appealing to all metalheads is, of course, a safer way than to intentionally piss some of them off. So, I'm not saying that any band without political lyrics is just doing so because they're afraid of someone's opinion on them. But, many bands write lyrics inspired by fantasy worlds or historical events or, mythological creatures. And these things don't have anything to do with politics in the modern sense. But, there are probably bands out there who avoid this topic on purpose. Also, making and listening to music that doesn't feature any, heavy topics, including politics, can also be a form of escapism. There is something nice about a nonsensical song, from time to time, or music to just have a good time and party to. And many people love songs about beer and listen to them while drinking beer. So, drinking beer, being silly, and forgetting about the crushing weight of their parents' expectations of them and how they'll never be good enough. But I digress. But enough with all this positivity. Let's get to the negative points. A big issue is that the saying, keep politics out of metal, is usually brought up after someone pointed out some political behavior of another party, which is usually the artist or a band. They did something racist or misogynistic, so the person pointing out a political message they don't like is told to keep politics out of metal and shut up about it. But, they didn't start bringing politics into this. The artist actually did. And that's actually my main criticism. Because in my experience, this is very often a way to defend right-wing political views by pretending that not the music, but pointing out this message is making it political. To, just outright stop any discussions about it and tell people to shut up. But, what does this accomplish? Yes, you could argue it might keep the peace, but it is also just a complete defense of the artists, and you can be political in your art as long as it's not too blatantly obvious. There can be songs and imagery full of political and ideological references, but as long as it's not completely on the nose, you can tell anyone who criticizes these messages to shut up and not get political. So it often just becomes an excuse to be racist, to be dog whistling, but then have plausible deniability and blame the other person for their critique and making it about politics again. Also, saying that metal is not political and shouldn't become political is also, frankly, quite stupid because metal started as a political genre. One of the very first bands that defined this genre was Black Sabbath. Their song War Pigs is a political song speaking out against war. Also, just being a metalhead back then already was a statement showing you were opposed to the mainstream culture. There are also, multiple Megadeth songs against war, and Napalm Death is one of the most political and well-known bands and has been political since the 80s. So, political metal is not a new phenomenon or, a new way of stupid liberals to ruin metal and turn it into something it has never been. Because that's simply not true. So another argument I often hear is people saying that the message should just be ignored because the music is just so good. But, should the instrumentals and vocals and the sound really be seen as, the most important part and, listening to the lyrics or judging their behavior or their imagery is making it political? These are all intentional parts of the art. The artist chose to create that. And, just picking parts of that that are not political and then criticizing others for seeing it as, a complete package is silly, in my opinion. And yes, in my opinion, you read the title of the video. I think saying keep politics out of metal sucks. Because, in my experience, it's a thinly veiled attempt to, just let racists do whatever they want and to silence the people voicing their concerns. Because being political doesn't mean nobody can enjoy music for fun anymore. Just because I like listening to a band's political views doesn't mean you cannot get drunk and, sing about a pirate drinking beer or, riding into a sunset on a mythical dinosaur. Yes, sure, arguing about politics can get you into heated debates and therefore, disturb the peace. But, this peace is at the expense of the people affected by discrimination, by racism, by sexism and everything. And if I just let NSBM bands roam free and play at all the festivals and nobody's allowed to argue about it, yes, there will be no arguments then. But, are we really a community? Are we really a big, happy family? Or, does this automatically exclude any people that are not deemed metal enough or not white enough, German enough, Scandinavian or whatever enough? By the way, a little racism side note for the Americans watching. Even though you might perceive a lot of Europeans as Caucasian and white, we can still discriminate one another based on where one's family is from. And, you might consider me to be white, but as my family is mainly from Eastern Europe, many Western or Scandinavian racists would still not consider me the same value. And of course, it's much, much worse for people of color. And I can't really speak on their behalf, but I generally don't see a lot of people of color in the European metal community. And I think a lot of this has to do with, the feeling of not feeling welcome due to racist behavior or, excusing and ignoring racist behavior in the community. It's similar to women and misogyny. It's not like women just don't get this music or do not like this music ever, but sometimes it's just easier not to interact with a group of people that you feel don't want you to be in their community. But, go watch my video on sexism in the metal scene. Yeah. Also many of these bands are not only racist, but also sexist through their very conservative ideas of gender and, big, strong, manly men. So also with this topic, if I keep this out of metal and shouldn't discuss feminist politics like the very extremely hot take that women should be equal to men and have the same rights and be treated with the same respect, as every person should be in general. If I keep this out of metal, how can we be a big, united community? How are we a community if we cannot discuss half of the world's population not being welcome here? And how is it about just enjoying the music if we cannot call out when people are excluded because of their skin color or where their grandmother is from? Tell me how this is keeping politics out of metal. And I don't want to hear anything about, how non-white people or whatever are stealing metal from them. Because, black artists started rock and roll. And again, if you say keep politics out of metal, you cannot talk about how anyone's stealing anything from anyone. If you say metal is not about politics, but about love for music, then you shouldn't give any fucks about this. No, but if you do, you like politics in metal. You like the political messages as long as they are yours and nobody challenges them. So, in conclusion, being able to keep politics out of metal is a privilege. If you are a white manly man in the metal community and, nobody questions your right to exist in general and in this community, then you don't need to worry about the politics in metal. But instead of finding it annoying, I'd love you to point out racist and sexist behavior when you see it. If you want a community, then help building one. And I mean that by inclusion and not exclusion. Because I'll say it again, even if there are people who would be very happy if people complaining about racism and sexism in metal just, stop being metalheads. That is not happening. Now, as I also said in another video, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. And I, as a random person on the internet, don't expect to change any hardcore racist person's view with this. But I hope this gave you some new ways of looking at this topic. And, I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments, as always. And I also want to add that, having different views and discussing them, maybe even learning to see where others are coming from with their opinions and, just sometimes agreeing to disagree in the end is not bad. We need to have discussions to make progress. And, this is not all a matter of just, peace or war. There can be something in between where, people don't necessarily share all of the same views, but can get along just fine. And I don't expect everyone to have the same exact political views. That won't ever happen. But, can we at least agree to not support full-on racists and rapists and the like? Yeah, so let me know down in the comments your opinion on this, and if you actually ever were in such a situation where someone told you to keep politics out of metal. Anyway, bonus cat time. Letty, letty, bonus catty, letty, letty. Bye.